Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the MAG Comedy Showcase Comedian Famous Person Q&A Roundtable something or other. There's nothing else to do on Sunday morning spectacular.
Welcome to Hangover Town.
I am your moderator, Tom Heyer, sitting in for the unfortunately diseased and disabled Farad Muhammad, who is the executive producer and director of this entire shebang. So if it totally sucks, it's all his fault. Everybody remember that? So I'm going to go ahead and invite our guests to introduce themselves, state your name, and state why on earth we got up out of bed this early in the morning to come and hear you talk about video game comedy. In no particular order, let's start with Derek, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? All right, I'm Derek Williams. From Virginia Beach. I've been doing comedy for about 13 years now, hitting all the open mics, hitting all the spots, producing shows and all that good stuff. And the reason I got up this morning at 11 is because my kids are in my room. So.
Yeah, fleeing responsibilities is definitely that's like number 3 on our list of top 10 MAG motivations.
There you go.
We institutionally approve.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Onward.
Wake up, Joey. Are you awake? Hello.
My name's Joey. I've been doing comedy for about 4.5, 5 years. I like to travel and stuff, do a lot of work in Chicago and the Midwest. And why I am here at 11 with you guys, I'm just as confused as you. I don't know why I did it. I'm kind of hungover and tired, to say the least. Yeah.
Valid.
There you go.
Yeah, we're all kind of questioning some of our major life choices right now.
Yeah.
I'm Noah Houlihan from Plus 2 Comedy. I've been doing comedy for 12 godforsaken years.
Longer.
15 total. 12 godforsaken years. And
God forsook you in year 3?
Yeah, there's 3 years that are pretty good. And
Then you met me.
I'm here because I'm the next panel after this, and it would have been real awkward if I no-showed this and then rolled up to do my panel after this.
We would have passed each other in the hall. Well, for what it's worth, I want to assure you that the entire viewing audience will remember this forever.
Oh, good.
Matt and Laura.
I'm Laura Prince. I've been doing this on and off for about 11 years. I got started out of what can only be considered pure spite. And I'm here because I'm like one of those people, I was packed last night, like everything was like ready to go. So this was not that big of a deal. Like 11 a.m., I'm like, I'm good, hello. I've already had a can of coffee.
So Laura's the one excited to be here.
Good morning.
Yeah, that is a level of energy I'm not sure I can deal with. Nobody talked to Laura.
You're carrying this one, Laura.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that we open it up for our audience to pepper you with interrogatories as soon as possible. But real quick, I wanted to ask each of you down the line just a little bit about your history with gaming and why you decided to focus comedy on that.
Yeah, for me, gaming's just been what I've been doing. I'm like 49 years old. I still play anything, and I've just been into gaming for a really long time. And I got my kids into gaming, which is why they're here. And they're little beasts. My son beat Mega Man 2 when he was 5 years old by himself. God. He beat Cuphead when he was 9 years old by himself. So I got a gamer family. My daughter's really good at rhythm games. She's beaten me on my own rhythm games. So
I take it that comes from their mother's side.
Oh no, really? Not even close. Whoa. They get the book smarts from that. They get all the unneeded smarts from me. So, which is rhythm game, playing video games, all that good stuff, you know. But yeah, I just love games. I've been doing that for a long time. I incorporated that into some stand-up that I do, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's fun to get, and when you have an audience of just general people, because I do general shows, I'll still throw in those references, and all the nerds come up to me after the show and be like, oh man, you said this, and blah, blah, blah. And I love that. It makes me so happy. So yeah, that's me for gaming and good stuff.
Cool. Joey, what's your excuse?
I got into gaming as a kid. When I was like really young, my mom basically she got tired of me talking to her, so she bought me a Game Boy. And that's basically how I turned into a gamer.
Because they raised you like wolves?
Yeah, basically. And so when I started stand-up, I started in Western Pennsylvania, and it wasn't very, as far as like the topics and personalities go in the area for the comedy scene, it wasn't very diverse. I was clearly like the nerd one, and I got kind of tired of just not telling, stuff that I enjoy talking about. And so I tried to figure out how I can incorporate that stuff in my stand-up, and that led to online work with like streaming and sketches and things and such. And so that's what I do with the majority of my my game jokes is online, but I still have some stuff that I work on here and there for like events like this, because it's still fun, because gaming's still a part of me. So yeah, that's how it got incorporated.
Cool. Noah.
I got into gaming because I remember I was the kid who was always a gen behind when it came to video games. So like everybody had a Super Nintendo. I was like, no, let's play with the normal Nintendo. So like gaming was always a thing I was pursuing because everyone else had something better than me, and I just wanted to have it. And I remember when I got to college, I met up with some friends, and we just kind of had this discussion of like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a stand-up comedian just for us, that just got us? And we talked about it enough, and then it was like, well, we could just do it. And then we just did it.
Figured out that nobody could stop you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it wasn't so much like, who's going to stop us? It was more of a, I think if we don't do this, no one else will. I didn't know these guys. So it was more of like, we had an idea, and then we were suddenly struck with this sense of duty that we had to do it.
That's basically how MAGFest started, too.
Yeah,
right on.
I wasn't allowed to have consoles growing up, so how'd that work out for you, Mom? Like, they were afraid I'd never leave the house again or something. I'm left my house.
Okay, now that I know that your sprightly energy level is entirely fueled by spite, I'm completely with you.
Yeah. But like, I would just negotiate to get handheld systems. Like, I got a Game Gear because my grandmother lived a couple hours away, and they were like, oh, if we get you this Game Gear, you'll shut up in the car. I can be reasoned with. And then like I got my first Game Boy Color when I got straight A's one year. Like it was all the negotiation. So I learned how to hustle because that was the only way I could get video games. And I didn't own, my first console that I actually owned on my own was the Nintendo Switch. Like when I'd moved out and grown up. I guess maybe the Wii U. The Wii U was like joint property.
Yeah, it was joint property.
But I got into nerd comedy because I started working with him, and spite.
Right on.
Spite.
Right on. Yeah, it's been the experience in my family that video games are a great way for Nana to get revenge on her own kids by giving them to the grandkids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool.
Oh, somebody should have told my grandmother that.
Yeah. That would have been useful. A little negotiating play. Remember when she was teething? Yeah. Well, I would love for any of our bright-eyed and bushy-tailed audience members with burning and trenchant and hopefully concise questions to volunteer at this point. And anybody who receives a question, be sure and repeat it into the mic for archival purposes before answering.
Of course.
Cool. So, who is even mildly curious about any of these fine ladies and gentlemen?
What I always say when I do comedy Q&A is, if you want to ask us about comedy, you can. We'll give you all the information you want. If you just want to ask us a weird question, we'll riff on it as well.
Yeah,
So
boxes of briefs.
if you want to start an argument, you can do that as well.
Yes, let's discuss, what is the one true religion?
Oh, yeah, there we go. Jedi.
People say it's Final Fantasy VII, but I don't really like that game. I don't think it's that good. Fight me!
Wow.
I mean, there's definitely cultures that, not like real cultures, but in-universe cultures that worship different Pokemon like gods.
There are gods that are Pokemon.
I could go with that.
Yeah. Pokemon? All right, cool.
I know how I react when I see like a dog dressed like a Pokemon. That's good enough.
That's as close to seeing God as you've ever gotten. Seeing a dog dressed as an Eevee.
No, he was a Squirtle. Did you see him yesterday?
Yes, that's right. He was here. He was adorable.
Okay, I was hoping that it wouldn't be an actual quadruped Pokemon. I was hoping that it would be like, Snorlax or something. But
No.
No, it was a dog dressed like a
Squirtle's
Squirtle.
good too. Yeah. That's pretty rad. Yeah, but not like Venusaur or something, but something that actually walks on two legs. That's important to me.
I mean, like the whole premise of Mount Moon is like the Clefairies have their little cult, and like people just get sucked into the Clefairy cult. And I'm like, I watched it and went, yeah, that's probably what would happen to me. I would just be one of those Mount Moon people.
Question.
Yes, apologies for my voice. I got a bit of a throat thing, but this question's for everybody. What do you consider to be the most underrated video game console?
Most underrated video game console.
Underrated console.
I want a Dreamcast in a bet.
Dreamcast is a good shout.
Yeah, we won it in like a game of cards.
Yeah.
And it was actually really fun to play with. So.
Yeah. Power Stone's great.
And there's not a lot of nostalgia for the Dreamcast, so I would have to say that, because like there's a lot of nostalgia for all these other systems. I can't think of any other system that like nobody cares about.
Well, there's one thing that I've been saying for a while. I believe in the next 5 years, Star Fox Zero will become this like unknown classic, because it is the only game on the Wii U that was not ported to the Switch. It is the only game that's only playable on the Wii U. Because, like, based on its, like, control schemes and stuff like that, it can't be ported. It has to be played on the Wii U. And I'm going to predict that within the next couple years, there will be this, like, hey, remember that weird Star Fox game? Can we find it? We have to get a whole system for it. So that's my prediction. So I'll say the Wii U.
I would probably say, and it's the Philips CDI. Does anybody know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and to think of the fact that I own 2 of them. So, and I used to work for, actually, let me see that hat for a second.
This hat?
Yeah, let me see that hat. I used to work for Blockbuster. And we had a store called Blockbuster Games. We only had 3 test stores, and I was at one of them, which was in Virginia Beach. And we had, the way the whole system worked is you had a different system, and then if you had a game you wanted to buy, you could try it on the system before. And we had, thank you, and we had a Philips CDI, and the Philips CDI had this MPEG card in it that could play video, motion, you know, it was all special and whatnot. And for that, that's where I was playing Dragon's Lair. That looked like Dragon's Lair, finally. Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 2, I had all 3 of those. Well, the store had all 3 of those, and I used to play those all the time. They had all these different games. Seventh Guest, anybody remembers that?
Oh, yeah.
Seventh Guest was on there.
11th Hour.
Burn Cycle, which is a really good game. All these really underrated games are on that system, and a lot of people don't even know that system exists. Yeah, they have one downstairs, and my son was pointing it out. He's like, "Oh, Papa, look, they have the CDI," and I was like, "Yeah, I have 2 of them." Yeah, yeah.
We found the 3 remaining CDIs.
Yeah, my kids are very familiar with old tech. Like my son especially. Like when he saw that I pulled out my Commodore 64 disk drive, and my son goes, "Oh, you have one?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have one. It's up here in the attic. I got my games. I got a shoebox full of discs and everything." Yeah, but I had the Philips CDI. So when I worked at Blockbuster, it was Blockbuster Games. And when I worked there, when the store finally closed down, we had 2 Philips CDIs that we hadn't sold in the back, and they were liquidating everything. So they were selling games for like basically like 90% off. And they had those 2 systems sitting up there, and me and the manager were like, "Well, there's the one out on the floor, and there's 2 back here. Do you want one?" I was like, "I'll take 2. He's like, "All right." So we stole them. So we literally stole them. But what is Blockbuster going to do about that? Nothing. Like, but I gave one to my friend. So I have one, and it's really funny because my Philips CDI is in my bathroom in the shower. I have a shower that I don't use that I use as storage.
Oh, okay. That's
So I have. No, it's not. Yeah.
But
I have that.
Waterproofed it.
Yeah.
right.
But I have that. I have the whole that system in there, and so that's what I would probably say is
So
underrated.
you're the one who drove Blockbuster out of business.
Yeah, I blown by the blitz.
Running off with the
yeah,
with the
exactly.
inventory.
Yep.
I actually for everybody, but especially for you, Derek, like just working MAGFest, like we've seen in the time that I've been here, like the definition of retro gaming. Like, I mean, when I started, that meant, I mean, that wasn't like Magnavox Odyssey or anything by the time I was here, but it was still like 8-bit era. And now, like people are like, retro? You mean like the PSP? And so, keeping comedy relevant to your audience, do you find that there are like generational shifts because it just the culture turns over so quickly? Like when you said, Laura, when you mentioned the Dreamcast, like half the crowd here is like, oh yeah, I remember like the legend of the botched rollout and then everybody else is like, really? What's a Sega? So Derek, and anybody else who cares to chime in, what's been your experience at just tradecraft-wise staying relevant with your material?
Well, for me, I am one who doesn't care if the audience doesn't get it. I know I don't care. Like, for an audience here, if I do a lot of that stuff, they'll get it, and that's fine. Well, that's why we have our whole Geek Night show. It's Geek Night Comedy, and the whole show revolves around doing nerdy material for nerdy audiences, but when I'm on stage, those same jokes I'm doing for that audience, I don't write those jokes for that audience. That's just part of my material, and if somebody gets it, they get it. But if they get it, but but what I do, I balance it out. So I'll do a nerdy joke, watch that person get it, and then move on and do regular material. Which is, my regular material is mostly all nerdy stuff anyway. So, but if they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. But I'm still somehow, I'll do 30 minutes and 40 minutes, and I'll have the audience dying laughing. So it's like I make it relevant for them. So, and even if they don't get it, I try to get something that they can relate to, that they'll understand. So that's just the way I work. And
that's integrity right there.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've done plenty of shows where I know people don't get the joke. I do a reference to Star Trek where I talk about Trouble with Tribbles, December 29th, Season 2, Episode 16. And I say that, and some people know what I'm talking about, others who don't, and then I throw a Chewbacca joke in there, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, we get that. So, I make it relative to them so they can understand what I'm talking about. But that's the fun of doing stand-up is getting people.
The one guy in the back going,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll make a Doctor Who reference, and after that, people come up to me, Alonzi. I'll be like, yeah, that's my people. Cool. So.
I'm the opposite. I always try to structure my set as a hammock. Which is basically the first couple jokes I will tell are kind of for everybody. They're evergreen jokes. They're jokes that are not very timely or anything like that. They're a joke I could tell pretty much forever. And then in between is when I'll get my really specific, this game came out this year or this event just happened. This is a joke that by next month, next week will expire and be useless. And then I'll end on another evergreen joke that will last forever. And then that's just kind of how I tie my set together. Because in my experience as a Philadelphia comedian, if you don't get them in the first couple sentences, they leave.
Yep.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, or they stay and are angry.
Yeah.
The way I always structure is hit them with the stuff that I know will work and will hit everybody. Once I got everyone on my team, then they're okay if I make a very specific Uncharted joke that only some people will get. And then when we come back to the end, this way, when I get off stage, their last thought isn't, I didn't get that one. Their last thought is, oh, okay.
So a little bit like dating. Start off normal and then let it get weird.
Yes, and then save it at the end.
And then you can fart in front of each other whenever you want.
Yeah.
So.
You're I didn't know you liked wrestling until 2 years.
I hid my wrestling fandom for years from Laura, and now we both work in wrestling, so.
How did I get here?
Did either you guys have anything to say about your structure?
I mean, I kind of look at it with a little bit of an outsider, because we talk about I didn't have consoles growing up. I wasn't allowed. So I looked at this culture as a kid with this very please let me in, and kind of being able to take that outsider perspective of, okay, I was on the outside looking in of this. What are we all on the outside looking in on? And that's when you get jokes of that nerd noise joke I do, where everybody has something. Everyone in this room has one thing that if somebody gets the reference wrong, you're just going to be irrationally irritated by. So being able to find those very specific things and then find a way to apply it in a more universal way. I also like pay attention to what's out there of for want of a better term, what are Target and Hot Topic currently selling it as t-shirts as retro gaming? And that, it legitimately helps you be like, okay, they're selling N64 and PlayStation as retro gaming. So that's really what I got to think of as retro gaming right now.
They're selling GameCube shirts as retro now.
I don't think I've ever seen a GameCube shirt in the wild.
Made me very sad.
That makes me just want to burn the world.
Oh, yeah.
The funniest thing for me right now is that you guys are like, Nintendo's not retro, and I'm like, it's not. That there is prime example of relevance to the question.
Right.
Yeah. The rest of us are just being skee-balled into the grave, but luckily we've got a youthful, vibrant young man here to remind us all.
Yeah, that N64, I was playing that when I was like 5.
All right. Your turn's over.
So,
Wait, how old were you when the N64 came out?
Why would you ask him again?
What year did it come out?
1996.
96. I might not have even been a year old.
They talk about classic arcades, and I'm like, classic arcade? Like, you walk in my house, there's nothing but arcade machines. So I don't. Why is it classic? It's still there. Like, I got my Turtles machine. I got my Simpsons machine. I got my Dragon's Lair machine. I got my Poppin' Music. I got my DDR machine. Those are not. That's not retro. What are you talking about? It's still alive to me. Still real to me. Damn it! Like,
my video games were published on Edison wax cylinders. But Joey, so you came into it, somewhat more infuriatingly recently than the rest of us, but still you found that nobody was really doing this kind of material in comedy yet.
Yeah, so as far as like the different demographics and relevancy with time of I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say, can't get it out. But no, I definitely do think that there is a difference in like age relativeness with demographics. So like a lot of the shows that I get back home, I get there's already factors against me as far as like age and things of such. So there's like cultural gaps and things in media. So I kind of have to, in order for me to get booked, I kind of have to understand like how to connect with people of older people older than me anyways, and different gap in the cultural aspect. So, but I think I didn't think about it until he just said it though at the beginning of this question. As far as like the nerd gaming community, I don't think that really exists. Because, like, yeah, I may not understand some of your Dreamcast references, but you understand every reference that I know.
From cave paintings, he's talking.
So I don't think, I think we can all still connect with each other over all of that, because you guys, although I may have not experienced the same thing you guys have, you've all experienced what I have with games, so, like, we can still connect. And, even though it's not like that in the country where I'm from. It's not. When I said country, I meant Western Pennsylvania. And
that's a whole other place.
Yeah. Over the Misty Mountains,
right? Yeah.
It's not like that over there. So, but yeah, in the gaming community, I did just realize that. So yeah, I don't think there's too much of a cultural gap between our community in general. Although I didn't get to answer the last question about what console I think deserves a little bit more respect. I think the retro GameCube does, because
I'm gonna punch you.
It got a handle on it, right? It's made for traveling.
Yeah, why did they stop doing that?
I didn't own any of these game consoles till I was an adult, so I have no idea what year any of them came out.
Yeah, they all came out at the same time.
The GameCube and the SNES could have come out all the same year for all I knew.
People, I get into a lot of because the GameCube is my favorite console, and so people, I get in conversations and they're like, the GameCube's mid, it's mid, but like it has a handle. How is it mid? It's like it's one of its kind. Like it's the only one. What do you mean? I think, anyways. Farage, look like you're thinking about that.
Console has a handle on it.
Yeah, see, so I'm right. It's the only one of its kind. How is it made? It's rare. Anywho, yeah.
Well, they have the old systems, which I have a Fairchild Channel F. which is, does anybody know what that is? No. Okay, that was one of the first systems that had cartridges, which a black dude made, just so you know. You've probably watched that documentary. What was that documentary that came on Netflix not too long ago? It was about video game, I don't remember what it was called, but they had a whole thing about that guy. And so, yeah. And they had a whole thing about him.
What was the name? Could you just repeat the name into the mic?
What was the name of it again?
High Score.
High Score. It was a documentary, it was a series on Netflix where I think it was 10 parts or something like that? Yeah, it was like a 10-part series, and it hit every aspect of gaming, from creating games to different genres of games. They had a whole thing about how fighting games blew up. They had a whole segment on that. They had one about LGBT in gaming. It had that, and it was really, really good. And me and my kids and everybody, we all watched. It was great. And but yeah, the Channel F is a system that people have no. I have Odyssey 2 with the Adventure for the Rings, which is like a Lord of the Rings ripoff for that system. But yeah, it's very rare. I don't even know what I was talking about just now.
They featured that guy on a Google Doodle.
Yeah. That was a few weeks ago. Yeah, they had him on Google Doodle. The same guy. It was pretty cool. I don't remember what we were talking about, so I will just move on.
Well, I was actually, just because, the caffeine is only just getting my heart started, the mention of the GameCube and the handle, it was, just because we're talking about various degrees of geezerdom and trying to stay relevant to the hip youth, I think the thrust of that was that Nintendo was basically trying to get in on the concept of a LAN party, because that was how people played together before this internet thing kind of had the juice to carry actual graphics and could render things at speed and at scale.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the reason why that came and went, was because it was relevant for exactly 10 seconds before. But it's this really specific moment. Mm-hmm. I have no follow-up. I just sort of hoping somebody would take that.
I guess not. I know why I was talking about the Channel F is because that system had that old wood siding.
The 80s.
And it had a little spot on there for you to hold your carts in there. The system was made to hold stuff, so everything was inside the consoles. You're talking about the one with the handle. That's cool. I love that. And the old systems had a little cart thing, so you could. But like I said, that wood paneling is oh man, this is great. It has wood paneling just like my station wagon.
Yeah. Like the TVs of the era.
Yeah, exactly. So. That was what I was going to say. But
also, the 5200 had a little compartment where you could be able to put your controllers in.
Yeah.
Mobile controllers, but yeah.
But a lot of systems got rid of that. The last thing was, like he was saying, the handle for the GameCube, so you could take it with you. But consoles don't do that anymore. They don't have any kind of setup. It's like, here's the box, put some games in it, and there you go. And if you don't have internet, you don't get to play. That's basically. Let me put my Nintendo in. Oh, this works just fine. I don't have to get internet. I don't have to do any first day updates. This is great. I'm good with this. What does anybody think about those? This is a gaming question, really. What does anybody think of that whole situation where games are made to be out but not working?
Oh my God.
That's
it's aspirational. Do your job, kind of.
Yeah.
And then be oh, whoops, we'll fix that later. Money, please. Mm-hmm. That's the dream.
Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve with games now, is games are being made to get put out, especially the big giant companies. They're like, oh, well, we need to have it out now so people can play it, but we don't care if it's broken. We're going to fix it later. And that's what the whole thing with Cyberpunk happened. That was a debacle and a half.
The issue...
That's software in general.
Yeah, but when I got my games, they worked. They may have had a glitch here and there, or things you can exploit, but it was like the game was working. You could start it, you could finish it, except for Ninja Turtles.
If it was, or if it wasn't, it wasn't. The point is that's what it was. It's released, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, I would say, though, one of the things about Cyberpunk was I remember before Cyberpunk was coming out, how gamers were screaming that it wasn't out yet. Yeah. And I think there's this new pressure where it's we'll just put it out. We just want to play it. And it's it's going to be broken then. Which is why my favorite developers right now are Team Cherry, who are working on, who put out Hollow Knight and are currently working on Silksong.
Are they?
Exactly. They don't say anything. That's the best thing, because they know if they put out any more than what they've already put out, we as gamers will be like, oh, that 5 seconds you put out, that looks done. Give me the game. Instead, they're going to we're going to be super quiet. We're going to say nothing. We're going to just count on all you guys going, where's Silksong? And then when it comes out, it'll be great and finished.
I remember when the leak for Half-Life 2 happened? Yeah, I had that leak. I got that copy. And getting that leak of the unfinished game when they had the little, the gravity gun, that whole thing, they had a room, it was the physics room, and that was part of the demo, but the game wasn't coming. I was like, oh, this game's definitely not finished, I can tell, but it was but that demo of that physics room made me want to get the game even more. So it sucks that leak happened, and it kind of delayed everything, and they weren't even close to being done with it, but they released it when it was done, which is the whole term, when it's done. But seeing that leak made me want that game even more, because I spent probably 8 to 10 hours just in that room. It was a small room about this size, barrels and all these different physics things you can do, and I just spent 10 hours in it, and I just had fun with that, and it just made me want the game even more. I knew it wasn't finished, and I had no problem with wait. I was like, oh, well, now that I played this, I have no problem waiting. So I wish companies even Cyberpunk, if instead of them releasing the full game, they could have released level 1, and just to give everybody hey, we're still working on this is level 1, this is all you're gonna get, come back later, when we're done with it, we're done with it. So you would be happy with that, I would just rather have them do that. So
yeah, one of the best releases I think was Resident Evil 7, yeah, where they put out the demo, and then they were then they knew when they were putting out the game that it was going to be slightly different from the demo, just to mess with you. That's how you do it.
I think it's interesting because this is really becoming more of a conversation now that it's AAA games that are affected, because I got a lot of the games that were, for want of a better term, aimed at girls when I had the Game Boy. Those games are always a little bit broken and always a little bit messed up, but now that it's the target audience for gamers, now they're like, wait, broken games? And I'm like, I've been playing broken games forever. Anything with the Olsen twins on it, that thing was broken. Because I rediscovered some of those games because I bought an NSYNC Game Boy Color game. Oh, it is borderline unplayable.
Well,
technically,
it's hard to call it game.
So, okay, this is an interesting highlight of a transformation in gaming culture that people, younger than me are not aware of. There was a time, kids, listen to Grandpa's story time, when the game companies paid you to be a beta tester and not the other way around. And... Right. So along the lines of certain features like that of the gamer experience having gotten just a trillion times worse and more annoying, I find that a lot of the time the best comedy is fueled by rage. Do you find that this has sort of influenced your material at all?
Oh, yeah. Because I don't do just video games. I used to do a lot of anime conventions as well. And there was nothing worse to me than when it's all right, I got to write new jokes, and I'd put in an anime or I'd play a game, and I'd get all the way to the end of it and go, that was great. Damn it. I have nothing to say about it because it was just good. When I sit down to write, the 4 categories of emotions are something is weird, something is stupid, something is hard, or something is, I forget my other category.
Scary?
Scary, or something is scary. Those are the places that you write from. It's very rare that you'll see a comedian go on stage and be like, know what's awesome? Nobody wants to hear about what's awesome. So most of my jokes, if you really pay attention, they're usually yo, I played X. It was really good, but here's a problem. And I always phrase it that way because it's like, I'm going to mention a game that people love, and I know that if I open with, Uncharted sucks, someone's going to be upset. So I have to be like, Uncharted was a pretty good game, but here are some issues I have with it. So like that's the dance I do every time I'm on stage.
I would do it the other way. But that's me, because I'm an asshole, so whatever.
Everybody who likes this game is stupid.
Well, I'll tell this real quick. I did a joke like a long time ago about Skyrim, and one of the setup to it was I don't like long games. I've never played like Myst or anything because I need a more concise story. And just because I had mentioned that in my setup, after the show, someone cornered me and explained all the Myst games to me in excruciating detail. And the rest of the comedy group I was in waved and walked away. I was like, all right. So it's like, when I'm on stage, I know that I'm in front of people who are very passionate about the thing that I'm making fun of. So I always try to word it in a way that's like, we're all laughing about this together, not this game sucks and people who like it suck. The end.
I think a lot of comedy does come from frustration and does make it more interesting to listen to, but I can't say personally that like raging and anything has really influenced my stand-up. I usually look for the more ridiculous things from where I come from in my jokes, whatever it is, whether it's a game or me just going through something. I look for the more ridiculous things to point out because why are things that way? It is, and then, like he said, it's stupid, and so that's really what influences my stand-up. Not as much as raging, though, even though I do think that's the funniest genre. Because I don't know, it's just something. It's just, to me, I like seeing people break their own stuff, like their controllers and stuff like that. Because I'm like, why would you do that? I wouldn't, but it's funny when you do it. So, like there was one time I was playing Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and I was fighting the Cell Juniors, and I got so frustrated. It was like 3 a.m. I got so frustrated. I started squeezing my controller, and it cracked. And I was like, well, that's really like $50. Let's not do that again. I'm not dropping $50 for this controller because I want to be stupid and break stuff when I'm mad. I'm gonna leave that to the streamers. But yeah, I can't say that frustration really influences my stand-up at all.
Yeah, I don't really, like, as much as I make jokes about spite, it's really not where I come from when I'm writing. A lot of the times I'll look at, like, gaming news and just kind of, like, be like, what stands out to me? What do I think is interesting? Like, when I was writing the set for this show, I saw that thing about Hogwarts Legacy having the unforgivable curses behind a paywall, and I just personally thought that news story on its own was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. It's like, the unforgivable curses are behind a paywall. Like, what a weird DLC thing to have. And then I kind of just went from that space of, like, the gaming world is increasingly strange and greedy and capitalistic, and, like, there's a lot of really funny things that grow from that. And they're also something like, none of us want to have to pay extra money for more content, so it's something that you can, again, find the universality in things.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Please, save us.
It's for the whole panel. What joke have you done that you didn't think was going to land, but then landed incredibly well for some bizarre reason?
What joke did you do that you thought was going to bomb and then turned out to kill?
Anybody
Awesome question.
So, this is a weird question. No, I'm not going to ask this question. I did a show at my friend's synagogue. He's Jewish, at synagogue, and so I got an information from another guy who we did a show at his spot, and he's Jewish, and he told me to say a word, and I'm not going to say what the word is, but if you're Jewish, you probably know what I'm going to say. Ooh. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so it was me and this dude that went before me named Rudy Malumba. He's from the Congo, and he went up before me, and I'm in the show, and I go up after him, and basically the joke that I said was, you guys weren't expecting 2 blanks in a row, and the whole audience, I thought the dude that gave me the word was joking, but I did the bit, and the people were laughing for like a whole minute. I was like, oh, that's just a minute off my time. I'm just gonna ride this out. But yeah, and it was just great from after that. It was fun. But you know what I'm talking? You know the word I'm talking about? You don't?
I have an idea.
Yeah. So yeah. But that's what. But I thought. But I'm in my head when I went to go do it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I just opened up with it. I'm saying, I'll see how this goes, and I did that and killed. And I was just like, everybody was like loving that after that. And after that, I was like, oh, I got another. I'm gonna just do the rest of my time, and it just was great after that. But I really thought that he was joking about using that, and I used it, and it was great. So, like I said, I'm not gonna repeat what the word is. You can look it up. Pretty sure you can find that easily on the internets.
I don't have a clue. I'm racking my brain. I'm like, Goyim? Like, hey, everybody, turns out Goyim can be funny too.
Have you seen Blazing Saddles?
Let's move on.
Yeah.
There's this joke I made like when I first started stand-up, which it derives from me actually playing my brother in video games. I was watching him, and I was just doing him in as the older brother, and he was like 12 at the time, and I'm the only mixed race sibling, and my other ones, they're all 100% black. I'm Italian and black, and so like I'm just doing him in, and he got mad and he wanted to roast me, and he called me a spaghetti nigga, and I made a joke out of that. I was like, this is so stupid. This is not this is not gonna work, but I did it, and it ends up it's like my most reliable joke. It's weird, but
yeah. I don't know if the cameras are picking up. The audience is dying now. Yeah. Just from like you didn't even tell the joke.
Yeah.
That was funny. That's great.
Oh, I don't know if I have any jokes with slurs in it to keep up with.
Yeah, tread carefully on this.
Yeah, it's tough just because, like, you don't go on stage planning to bomb.
Expecting to, maybe.
Yeah, but like, you don't tell the joke. You're like, well, this won't work. There are definitely jokes that I've written where, again, it's like that hammock thing that I was talking about earlier, where it's like, I like this punchline and I like this punchline, but the distance between the two of them is too long to go without a joke, so I'll throw something else in. And the only joke that I can really think of that I can't believe did as well as it did was in the super early days of Plus 2 comedy. We had a joke which was, I was walking down the street and I was wearing a polka walker. You guys remember polka walkers? I was wearing a polka walker, and this guy stopped me and made fun of me. And he was wearing a Twilight shirt. That's what reminded me. Wearing it front row. And that's when I learned people in glass houses shouldn't raise Geodudes. And see? And it was such just like a dumb joke, but like it was the joke people wanted to talk to us about for the most part. So we ended up getting merch made of just a Geodude in a glass house, like looking upset, with no other context around it. And people were like, yes! All right. I guess if you like that, you can have it.
IYKYK.
This was a joke I mostly did at anime cons. I like reality TV. I like bad reality TV. And if you watch reality TV, you know there's one about like essentially every kind of career. So I started kind of extrapolating what a magical girl reality show would look like. And then I couldn't figure out how to end the joke, and I was like, okay, I'm going to end this joke in a way that either is going to make the audience be like, I don't understand, or is going to do really well. So I would explain what a magical girl reality show looked like, and then I'd stop and go, wait a minute, they already do this. It's called RuPaul's Drag Race. And the audience actually like really went with me on it, and I was really... it was one of the things I did. I have a nasty habit of I write from stage where I will kind of throw something in while I'm on stage, and then I will never remember it again, and I will never know what I did again. It's why I like that they film MAGFest, because every year I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Good job, me. But that was one of my favorite jokes I wrote from stage, where I was like, how am I going to end this? I don't know. Throw RuPaul in there. It'll be great.
Topical.
I have a question.
Yep. Okay, I thought you were going to say something. Okay, so first time asker, full time leader.
You don't have to repeat that part.
It's relevant to my question. When you, like, what is a good way to do callback jokes? Because I really love doing callbacks sometimes when, like, I'm writing my joke, still am, but I'm writing my stuff, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta put it in one that calls back to that one, and it's like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, your best way to be strong about that.
Yeah, so for me...
Wait, the adjudicator needs to say every word of that into the microphone so that we...
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, as far as, so when you're doing stand-up, there's a thing called callbacks. I don't know if that is, but callback basically is when you make a joke about something, later on in your set, you make a reference back to that joke again, that's a callback. And you can do that multiple times. People do that multiple times in their set, and they'll do a callback, or they'll do a punchline, and then they'll do something and call back to that punchline and make the joke even funnier. And it's great. I love doing that. And that's the question is, what's a good way to do, work on callbacks? Well, for me personally, a lot of times I kind of let a callback work its way in. I don't write a joke to have a callback. Sometimes I'll find a callback while I'm writing it, but I don't, it's not intentional. But sometimes I'll have bits that I'll do where I'll do a bit about My Little Pony, and that's one of my favorite things to do is for an audience, because they look so confused when I explain My Little Pony to them and just don't understand what I'm talking about. But I do that bit, which leads into a thing about my sister, and then the end of that bit leads back to the My Little Pony thing, and then people are laughing about that. And so sometimes it has to be natural. You can write them to make them callbacks, but for me, I will find a callback. Wow. A lot of times I don't mean to write and stuff. I'll just be riding in the car and thinking about something, and I'm like, and I actually write it on my phone. I was like, you know what? Now that I just thought of this, that'll actually go with that. So let me try putting that with that and see how it works. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll do it a few times, and if it doesn't work out and I'm not getting a good response from it, I'll just either stop doing it or I'll do it intentionally just to piss off the audience, because I just do that. So, but then I'll still make a callback about, I'll do something else about it. But yeah, I let a callback fall in where it is. And if you're just randomly someplace and you think of something and it relates to something and you think it's good, just do it. I mean, the only thing you're going to be able to do is do it until you find out if it works or not. That's pretty much the way you do it.
Yeah, I find that since we're the space we run in, I almost think it's easier to write callbacks, because I'm so used to, in writing, trying to reference something else. Like, let's bring in this genre, and then to write a callback, all I have to do is try to reference me, and I know all about me, so it's easier to do. Sometimes they form naturally, because I assume most of you saw the show, but my joke about I'm going to remember this forever, I wrote way before the funeral happened. And then when the funeral happened, I was just like, oh, this is all coming together.
Yeah.
Laura was there, and we were just laughing like, this is going to be a great joke someday.
I have that.
We went to 3 funerals that day. 2 of them were on purpose.
Yes, the day of many funerals.
The hat trick.
The other way that I write them is just because I have I'm stuck in my own writing style. I'll write a bunch of similar jokes and then be like, okay, if I now spread them out, it becomes a callback. Because for some reason, I write a bunch of jokes about my dad leaving, which he didn't. My dad is a great guy. But for some reason, I like that just like as a comedy trope.
Audience, if you will, just picture an Irish John Cena.
Yeah, my dad's just like this awesome buff dude that we hang out a lot.
He looks like a Marine.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And raised this.
But I just I like falling back on that as a punchline, and at the show I had 3 jokes about it, and I was like, okay, I need to string these together to make this kind of a nice story almost. So just since it's your writing style and the way you form a punchline is kind of consistent in a way, what I usually do is I'll write a couple of good jokes that I like, and then just be like, okay, if I now spread them out, they're callbacks instead of it being me hitting a topic.
Do you find that there's like the basic mechanic of a callback is that you give the audience time to forget that you said the thing, and then you kind of surprise them by reintroducing it. Do you find that there's like an optimal way to kind of distract people from the original premise, or like a certain amount of time that should pass, or anything like that? You just feel it out?
Yeah, you kind of feel it out. Like, I mean, or it's just the way your set is written. If you have a 5-minute set and you do a bit in the beginning and then you have a callback at the end, it's just the way, it would fall that way. So there's no specific way to do it. So, I mean, that's as far as that, as far as I'm concerned, that's just, there's no real, there are times where for me, I think it's like, it's harder for me to want to let them forget, because if I do a callback, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I try to make it at least, or I'll try to lead up to them knowing that I'm going to do a callback, or I'll try not to do that, but I'll try to, at least get that callback in and, get them laughing and whatever. But yeah, I try not to let them forget, because, I've done a callback to a joke that I didn't even do sometimes, which is like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't do the bit. Oh, crap.
Isn't that the worst feeling in the world?
See, I think there's like that two styles of writing. There's architect and gardener. Like, you are very much an architect. You like write everything down. I find with something like callbacks, gardening works really well. Like, maybe you're on stage and you're doing your joke, and then something kind of reminds you of a joke you already did. Throw it in there off the cuff. The audience will be like, ah!
Yeah.
Because like a callback is essentially an inside joke you have with the audience. So treating it like that, and if you're talking to your friends and you realize there's a place you can throw in your inside joke and you do and it works, kind of consider it that way of like, I'm very much a gardener. I write from stage, drives him nuts, but it's something that experiment with, have fun with.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to like timing, it also depends on if the punchline is funny without knowing the beginning. Because like there's a callback joke that I do that's basically about the structures of jokes, and it happens very quick succession. And then I'll remember you forever. If you didn't see the beginning of my set, someone screaming that at my face at a funeral is still kind of funny. And it's not going to leave you completely lost. So I think it's depending on the value of remembering. If the joke could still work without it being referencing the previous joke, then I can space it out as much as I want.
Just in case somebody was in the John.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question.
This will have to be pretty much our last question, so make it a good one.
No pressure.
So, the whole thing about like, does discussing something make you, if you have to explain a joke, it's not funny?
Yeah.
There's so much talk about crap. I was curious, when you guys are watching comedy, is it hard to separate like just enjoying the show versus like, oh, that was very clever how they put that together, that set was well crafted, the hammock the structure was there. Are you always seeing things on two levels, or is it like, are you usually able to just sit back and go like, that was fucking hilarious, and not sort of go like, but I see what they did there, and yeah, that gives you some ideas for my set. I'm just sort of curious, like, if you're able to make that separation, or you're always thinking about like your own act and how to fit that in.
Yeah. So the question is, as far as when us as comics are watching other comics, if we can separate. Analyzing the comedian and enjoy it by itself. And for me...
Can film students enjoy movies?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, for me, I kind of do both. I do try to balance it out to where if I watch a comedian on TV, I'll watch them, but my analyzation will slip in sometimes, and then I'm like, wait, I'm just watching this. I'm not supposed to be doing that. But sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I get I do that. But it's hard for me to do it since I do it. It's harder for me to separate them. But that's just me. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I do find myself just watching a stand-up show and just enjoying it. But sometimes they'll do a thing, and I know in my head, I know exactly why they said that. I know why they said it at that time, and I know what they're going to do with it later. So
If a comedian's really good, I don't do it. But like, if it's not going well, I can really be like, well, that's messed up. That's where you messed up.
Yeah.
But like, if they're doing really well, I can totally take myself out of it. Although there's at least one comedian where I just get irrationally angry because she's so good that like, I'll watch her and I'll be like, oh, she's so good. I'm so mad about it. Because she's so good.
I like subconsciously do that. Like I'll pick things up. I don't really care to think about it though. I like to just enjoy the craft when I watch it. I usually only think about it when it comes to booking people and things of such, and what I would want on my show and things like that. But I don't really analyze other people's sets because one thing that I've learned whenever I was starting is I was like so different from everyone else in my scene that you can't really analyze, like everyone's different things work for different people. And so for that reason, it was like how I'm analyzing someone else's set, I kind of realized that's more so to my standards and what I enjoy and not what they like. So while I can be sitting here thinking that I don't think that's good, this is good, that's different, this is great, I see what you're doing and things like that. Although I'd like to see what you're doing thing, I do that a lot, but that could be like how they meant it though, you know? So it could be like, I'm like, that wasn't great writing, but to them, like that was exceptional writing, you know? So it's just, I don't really try to judge people's sets when I'm watching. I kind of just try to enjoy it as it is.
I try to enjoy it. I tend to need to watch comedians that are very different from me in style. Like, I don't do a lot of one-liners, so I watch a lot of like Dimitri Martin type stuff just because when I'm watching someone that kind of has a similar flow to me, they'll say the setup and I'll think of a punchline and be like, ooh, I could use that. And then they'll say that punchline. I'll be like, they stole it from me. But no, that's not how this works at all. It's just because, like, when I'm writing, like, I'll write with other people and we'll throw premises around, and that's kind of how we'll write. And so, like, when I watch a comedy show, I tend to kind of get into that mode. I think the thing that I kind of miss about comedy is I've become that person that if someone tells a really good joke, I'll just be impressed rather than laugh. So, like, I'm totally that was good. That was funny.
The wow thing, like,
yeah,
oh wow, I can't believe they did it like that.
And people hate it,
Yeah,
but
we
it's
can't-
I'm telling you, this is the greatest compliment because I'm jealous of your joke.
Yeah,
that was
exactly,
funny.
yeah.
It's like, then laugh. I'm like, no, I'm too busy being impressed.
Just superciliating and swirling your snifter of
Yes,
brandy.
I approve.
I hate when people do that.
I know, it's the worst.
Yeah, because I don't believe them.
Okay, well, the time is 11:59, so we are delighted to continue this conversation outside. In the meantime, I'm going to thank you all for attending. I'm going to remind you that if you've enjoyed anything that you've heard today or the MAG Comedy Showcase in general, please let us know, especially in the form of written feedback in the guidebook app on this panel. That is something that we MAG staff, that's by far the thing that we look at the most because very few people think to do it. So that would be very helpful information for us if you've enjoyed and would like to see more. In the meantime, please join me in thanking Laura Prince, Noah Houlihan, Joey Peirce, and Derek Williams for their contribution to the MAG Comedy Showcase this year and for sharing their wisdom with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
And real quick, I'm the next panel in here. So if you want to just hang out for ARGs, Puzzle Trails, and Unfiction, I'm going to set up in a moment. So
cool.
You can just hang out here.
Cool. Yes,
right.
please do. I am Tom Heyer and one of the department heads for guests and panels. And please also join me in thanking Farad Mohammed, the director and producer of MAG Comedy, for this whole shebang.
We love you!
Yep. So, all right, well, that's it. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this balmy Sunday morning, and we will look forward to seeing you around the rest of the festival. Take care.